News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. President Trump repeated his threats to destroy Iranian energy assets if the Strait of Hormuz isn't reopened soon. That's raised fears that the war could escalate. Trump claims great progress has been made in talks, but also warns the U.S. will blow up and completely obliterate Iran's energy facilities if a deal is not reached. Bloomberg's Anne-Marie Hordern spoke with President Trump by phone.
When it comes to electrical facilities, desalination facilities, he also mentioned Cargill, which he mentioned last night as well to the Financial Times. This morning, he just said to me that the war is going well, unbelievably well, was his words. And then he said they want to settle. He's like, that's all I can say. They want to settle.
Bloomberg's Anne-Marie Hordern. Treasury Secretary Scott Bezzant indicated optimism about a reopening of the Strait of Hormuz for passage of cargo ships. He says the administration is steadily moving to address the shortage of global oil supplies.
We are seeing more and more ships go through on a daily basis as individual countries cut deals with the Iranian regime for the time being.
Bezzant tells Fox News the global oil market is in a deficit of about 10 to 12 million barrels each day, and that the U.S. is making up for that. And 50,000 U.S. troops are now in the region. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was asked about President Trump's post on social media that claims the U.S. is talking with a, quote, new and more reasonable regime.
There are clearly people there talking to us in ways that previous people in charge in Iran have not spoken to us in the past. Some of the things they're willing to do, some of the things they're saying they're willing to do. Obviously, they have to go do it. We're going to test that proposition very strongly because we always prefer to settle things through negotiation and diplomacy.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio speaking to ABC News. Investors are also assessing new comments from Fed Chair Jay Powell, who says the Fed's tools have no meaningful effect on supply shocks.
Energy shocks have tended to come and go pretty quickly. Monetary policy works with long and variable lags, famously. And so by the time the effects of a tightening in monetary policy take effect, the oil price shock is probably long gone, and you're weighing on the economy at a time when it's not appropriate.
Fed Chair Jay Powell at a Harvard University event, and that got treasuries moving. Stocks are higher after a rout fueled by worries over the economic fallout of the war in Iran. We do check markets for you all day long here at Bloomberg. The S&P 500 is up about 0.5%, NASDAQ up about 0.25%, the Dow up about 0.8%. The 10-year Treasury yield at 4.33% and the 2-year yield at 3.82%. Bitcoin now 1.6% higher. That's near $68,000. WTI is 2.25% higher, trading at $102 a barrel, and Brent crude is 0.6% lower, now around $112 a barrel. Air Canada says CEO Michael Russo will retire later this year after he was criticized for his English-only message of condolence following this month's deadly crash in New York. The two Air Canada pilots were killed when their plane collided with a fire truck on the runway shortly after landing. Canada is an officially bilingual nation. Prime Minister Mark Carney says the English-only message showed a lack of compassion and judgment. Bloomberg's Matthew Dion.
A lot of Quebecers are just seeing that as a lack of consideration, or even something like that's very condescending on his part regarding the French language. It's our understanding that Air Canada wanted to end this. And there was especially a global search for a new CEO anyway, because he was planning to retire.
Bloomberg's Matthew Dion on Bloomberg Intelligence. The U.S. Embassy in Venezuela has formally reopened. A State Department memo seen by Bloomberg News says the move will strengthen the administration's ability to engage directly with Venezuela's interim government, civil society, and the private sector. Now, the U.S. plan aims to lead to a democratically elected government in Venezuela and open up Venezuela's oil industry to U.S. investment. It is not clear when the embassy will return to full service. The Trump administration will resume processing some asylum claims after a near-blanket halt of immigration paperwork for hundreds of thousands of people seeking refuge in the U.S. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services lifted the adjudicative hold for asylum seekers from countries that are deemed to be a lower risk, with maximum screening and vetting to continue. But sources tell Bloomberg that people from countries on President Trump's travel ban still have their asylum paperwork on hold. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris, and this is Bloomberg.